All right, so I finally, we've talked about this a few times on the show, Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, because
It's one of those games I've been wanting to get my hands on, and I could have bought it through the Virtual Console, but I wanted the physical copy because it's not necessarily hard to find, but it's not necessarily cheap even for a used game.
Right.
It was very popular in Japan when it came out, and when it was released in America, it was released as a GameStop exclusive. So you could only buy it at those stores when it came out new for the Wii.
Right.
Now, I hadn't played it, and I have played Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yes.
Okay.
For the Wii U, right?
For the Wii U,
Yeah.
yes. And recently I bought a 2DS because they were cheap at Walmart, and I haven't had a Nintendo handheld since the Game Boy Advance, and so I was like, hey, I've got a little tax return money left, I'm going to go buy me a 2DS. I saw it was just more of an impulse buy, and then bought a couple games for it. Went into GameStop, and I know that Xenoblade Chronicles was released for the 3DS, so I picked it up and took it to the counter, and they were like, do you have the 3DS that has like the 2 analog sticks? And I was like, no, I only have the 2DS. And they're like, oh, it's not going to work on this. It's only available for the new 3DS. And I was like, oh, well, that sucks. And I mentioned to the guy behind the counter, I was like, it sucks because I really want Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, and you guys have it over there, but it's still like $60 used. And he's like, he didn't really, maybe he didn't realize like the history of the game and the fact that it was originally a GameStop exclusive, so there is some bit of rarity to it. Because he was like, I don't understand why it's so expensive, whatever. I mean, they pretty much control the market, and the price of $60 for a new game is, that's a new game, but this one was a used game.
And it's a fairly old used Wii game.
Wii game, yeah. And it's one of those games that, you can find online, but the price point is still going to be around that price.
Yeah.
And I don't like paying full price for used games, so I've always put it off. But they've always had that one copy in that GameStop, and every time I go in, I would always look at it and be like, still $59.99. It's like I can't do it.
Right.
So anyway, I was talking to the guy, and he was like, "Look, if you really want Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii, I will knock $15 off of it." And I was like, "Sold American. Let's do it." So yeah, and this was the first time I've ever been in a GameStop where they marked something down for me. And it's not like I go in and ask for discounts on stuff like that.
Right.
But I was really impressed because I work in the retail business, and I know how important it is to provide good customer service and those kind of things. And the place I work at, I'm not going to say the name, but, we do a lot of that, to please the customer. We'll take some money off of it or whatever. So I told him that. I was like, look, man, this is pretty impressive. And I'm, kind of have a renewed appreciation for GameStop, at least in our area.
Yeah. Because
they've never done that for me before. So that, I got to give him credit where credit is due for him doing that for me, because he didn't have to.
Right.
And he's just like, and he told me, he was like, I just want to see people, get the games that they want.
I mean, I feel like it's also about making a sale, because I can't imagine that GameStop gets all that many sales all that often anymore.
For, like, used Wii games? I mean,
well,
there's
especially for used Wii games.
There's
but
always people in GameStop when I go in there. Always.
It still blows my mind, because you and I have had this conversation before. I feel like actual physical video game stores are going to die.
Right,
probably
dude,
real fucking soon.
Think about the profit margin on used games.
Oh yeah, it's insane, which is why I hate GameStop most of the time. Because you can't get shit for turning games into them.
Yeah, but
and then they turn around and sell them for 1,000%.
Unless you take back games that are brand new, like, if like Mass Effect Andromeda comes out, if you play it and you beat it within a week and take it back, you'll get a good chunk of your money that you spent on it back.
Right.
But they depreciate very, very quickly. But anyway, let's get back to the thing. So I bought Xenoblade Chronicles finally for the Wii, and been playing it a lot, and I want to talk about a little bit of a comparison between that and X.
Well, I mean, and that's good. Also, because one of the first games that has been announced for the Switch, when that comes out next
Xenoblade
month,
Chronicles 2.
Exactly. It's the direct sequel to the game that you just got.
Now, Xenoblade Chronicles X is considered like a spiritual successor, and I'm only about 8-9 hours in to Xenoblade Chronicles. So this isn't going to be very like in-depth analysis of it, but it definitely plays very, very similar to Xenoblade Chronicles X as far as like combat goes. I mean, it's pretty much a JRPG.
Yeah.
Very vast, wide open spaces, but it's not an open world, a massive open world like Xenoblade Chronicles X is. But, as far as like the art style and everything, very, very similar. The music in Xenoblade Chronicles, in my opinion, is better than Xenoblade Chronicles X. And if anybody out there that has played both games, they'll know the music can get very repetitive and annoying in Xenoblade Chronicles X. There's no option to turn it down, and there's a few instances like in cutscenes where this music is playing and it almost drowns out what they're saying, the characters. And in Xenoblade Chronicles X, it's just a musical score. In Xenoblade Chronicles, it's a musical score. In X, like there's like rap songs and stuff in it, which is kind of weird. So it's like,
okay, but in this day and age, how is there not an option in the menu,
dude,
to allow you to turn music volume
down? Dude, in Xenoblade
down?
Chronicles X, you can only have one save at a time. You can only have one game going at a time.
You're really not selling me, by the way, on this game.
It's an acquired taste for sure. But
it's like The Witcher 3. It's an acquired taste.
Oh, dude, Witcher 3 is fucking awesome. Shut up.
Witcher
3 is leaps and bounds better than both of those games combined. But anyway, the story so far in Xenoblade Chronicles is a lot more compelling than in X. The voice acting to me is a lot more compelling. And one thing that I like about Xenoblade Chronicles versus X is that it seems like in X, they have taken all the mechanics and amplified them by 1,000 to where there's a lot of very complicated things that you have to do in Xenoblade Chronicles X. There's a lot of like, you can like invest in different weapons and arms manufacturers, and you have to go to these like different places on the map and implant these probes and mine things and all this stuff. With Xenoblade Chronicles, it's pretty straightforward. There are a ridiculous amount of side quests, but it's mainly like fetch quests, monster hunts, kind of thing like that, which on the majority of the side quests, you do not have to go back and turn them in. It's just once you've picked up the quest, and once you've killed like the 3 monsters, you automatically get your
reward,
your like experience and your money and all that kind of stuff. So that's nice. The problem with the side quests in Xenoblade Chronicles versus Xenoblade Chronicles X, though, is there's no tracking of the quests.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Which sucks because you're looking at the quest and you're like, well, I'm gonna go do this and this and this and this and this, but it doesn't give you any spots on your map. And I looked it up, and they're like, no, it doesn't. I mean, it tells you where the areas are, and you can fast travel to areas that you've already been to, so that makes it easy. So I just quit tracking side quests. I would go pick up all the side quests that I could, and then a lot of it is like find 3 of these things or kill this many monsters. So I just like, well, I'm just gonna play through, and I'll just if I complete them as I go, then I complete them as I go, and I'm just gonna focus on the story, which in Xenoblade Chronicles X is quite a bit convoluted as well. So I would definitely recommend Xenoblade Chronicles over Xenoblade Chronicles X.
And that is saying something. When did Xenoblade Chronicles come out?
Oh, dude, I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, but it's a Wii game, and they haven't made...
It was a Wii game that came out in Japan first, and then like 2 years later or something like that came out in North America.
Right.
As a GameStop exclusive. So it's not something that got a huge
lot of
push.
Attention.
You're right. And I think that speaks to the quality of the game when... it's got admittedly a cult following now. They were able to make a they did the 3DS port, which got a wide release. They got the spiritual successor in Xenoblade Chronicles X, and they've already announced a direct sequel for the Switch.
Yeah.
Now let's see. 2012 it was released in North America. It was released in Japan in 2010.
Yeah.
So it's a 7-year-old game.
Yeah.
Which isn't that old.
Yeah, I suppose. Because, if I look back at the original Mass Effect, that was 2007. That's a 10-year-old game, and I can still play the shit out of that game.
But I'm having a lot of fun playing it. definitely is keeping my attention. I do like the JRPG style games, and I'm really looking forward to finishing out the story, and it's actually making me want to revisit Xenoblade Chronicles X again. It's just
despite
with
all of X's vast shortcomings,
right, but it's still a fun game. It's still a fun game, and I'm not saying that they're vast shortcomings. It's just they pack so much into that game that you could spend hours upon hours upon hours upon hours just doing side quests and just the little side stuff that you can do in X. Plus, you get these big like mech suits called skells in X. But I will before we move on, I will say that I like the premise of Xenoblade Chronicles, and it looks like they're going to be doing that again in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Is you're not on a planet, you are on a Titan.
Yeah,
because there's one called Bionis and there's one called Mechanis, and they were fighting, and they both like died or something mid battle, and so like the Bionis Titan is where all like the humanoid creatures live, and the Mechanis Titan is like where they called the Mechon, where they're like robots. Yeah, and so there's all this fight between like the humanoid characters called the Homs and then the Mechon. So like the Mechon keep trying to invade Bionis, and it's just a really cool concept. And there's some parts in the game where like you look up in the sky and you can see like the other thing and like the blade going through, and it's pretty cool. The Xenoblade is the sword called the Monado, and it's like the only sword that can hurt the Mechon, but it can't hurt like humans or Homs, But now there's this new type of Mechon that has like a face, and for some reason the blade doesn't work on it, so we're having to figure out. And there is an interesting mechanic too. Shulk, the main character, can like see things that happen in the near future. So like you're fighting a battle, and all of a sudden it goes to this like weird like ethereal type screen where you see your partner getting hit by this super high level attack, and so you can go and warn them in the middle of the battle. You can go and warn them, and then you each put out some different attacks to try and stop that from happening. It's an interesting mechanic. That is kind of an interesting.
Yeah, I do kind of dig on the idea behind that mechanic.
It's cool. Sounds really cool. It was a very highly revered RPG, especially in Japan, and I think that's why it got even a release at all in North America, was because JRPG fans were like, "Hey, this looks really cool, and we want to play it." So, anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say about it. I'm still working on it, but I would recommend both games. But if you had to choose between one, I would say go with Xenoblade Chronicles first. So if you have a new 3DS, pick up the 3DS version. It's also available on the Virtual Console on the Wii U. And if you come across a Wii title for a decent price, pick it up, because it'll be good.